Tonight, we begin with a development that Pentagon officials had feared, tracked, and quietly prepared for. A strike that unfolded not over weeks, but in minutes. Minutes that redrew the map of Black Sea control. Minutes that exposed Putin's most protected naval asset. Minutes that sent shockwaves through Moscow's military command. What Russia did this month crossed a line that Washington had hoped would hold. And when that line broke, Ukraine did not hesitate. They responded with precision, power, and devastating accuracy. For months now, there had been signals, not official statements, not formal intelligence briefings, just signals that Russia was preparing something unprecedented in the Black Sea. Putin has been aggressive, yes, but he has been calculated in his aggression. His moves have followed a certain logic, a rhythm, almost a predictability. But what set off alarm bells in Washington this week was that the rhythm went silent. Intelligence analysts who monitor Russian naval activity know the indicators. The sudden repositioning of flagship vessels, the encrypted burst communications between Sevastopol and Moscow, the unusual movement of command personnel, the sudden radio silence, all of that went quiet. And whenever Russia goes quiet, it means something is about to get loud. Early Tuesday morning, U.S. satellite reconnaissance detected what they described as significant naval concentration activity, including command vessel movements that had not been observed in over 18 months. These are the kinds of assets that Russia only deploys when they are signaling something very specific: escalation, provocation, or preparation for offensive operations. Western observers didn't know which category this fell into or whether it fell into all three at once, but what they did know was that Putin was changing his Black Sea posture. And when a nuclear power shifts military posture without explanation, even by small measures, the Pentagon pays attention. The warning issued by Pentagon officials tonight was not normal. It was not routine. It was not symbolic. It was urgent. Sources, after classified briefings, described Russia's move as provocative, destabilizing, and, perhaps most importantly, operationally threatening to NATO shipping lanes. But intimidation only works if the target hesitates. Ukraine did not. In fact, their response today was among the most devastating we've seen in this entire conflict. Here's what we know. Within hours of detecting Russia's command consolidation, Ukraine launched precision strikes. These weren't the standard drone operations. These were coordinated naval missiles and sea drone systems that Ukraine only deploys when they are preparing to eliminate high-value targets. Tonight, defense officials confirmed that Ukraine launched surgical strikes on Russian Black Sea positions, including a hidden command post that had recently been activated for what analysts believe was a major offensive coordination center. Ukraine struck before Russia could disperse assets. They hit the command infrastructure. They hit communications arrays. They hit support vessels that were likely preparing to launch operations against Ukrainian ports. In other words, Ukraine targeted the nerve center of Putin's $4.7 billion Black Sea fleet. The command architecture that would have made the offensive operational. This is what made the Pentagon's warning so urgent. Russia's move wasn't just symbolic, it was actionable. It represented the kind of threat that could devastate Ukrainian shipping if left unchecked. And Ukraine, understanding that fully, responded with force. Not recklessly, not impulsively, but strategically. They didn't target civilian areas. They didn't escalate beyond military necessity. They hit command nodes. they hit operational capability. And here's where the story becomes even more significant. Intelligence officials now believe that Russia's latest move was designed to test the resolve of Ukrainian forces after months of grinding ground warfare. Putin wanted to see whether Kyiv would retreat to defensive postures. But instead, the opposite happened. Ukraine didn't retreat. They launched a counterstrike that was so precise, so overwhelming, that even Moscow noticed. You don't get the Kremlin's attention easily. But today, Zelensky did. Military analysts speaking with Western media under anonymity described Russia's naval consolidation as posturing, a way to project strength before potential negotiations. But Ukraine proved today that they remain both capable and willing. Their strikes were not only accurate, they were timed so precisely that Russian defenses had no opportunity to respond. As reports continued coming in throughout the evening, we learned more about the scale of Ukraine's response. And naval drones carried out coordinated attacks, forcing emergency evacuations from Sevastopol harbor. Missile strikes targeted radar installations that had been upgraded in the last 60 days. Special operations units operating near Crimea reportedly disrupted supply lines used by Russia to reinforce coastal positions. This wasn't just retaliation. This wasn't just defense. This was strategic degradation. This was capability destruction. And capability destruction is the one thing Russia has struggled to recover from since the Moskva sinking. For every advance Putin has made, Ukraine has countered with something that complicates his operational picture. Remember, Putin thought Ukraine would collapse in days. He thought the West would lose interest. He thought his Black Sea fleet was untouchable. But tonight, the exact opposite is happening. Ukraine is striking deeper than ever. Western support remains coordinated, and the Black Sea Fleet, once the pride of Russian naval power, lies crippled. What makes this moment so critical and so dangerous is that Putin's latest move happened at a time when he is under immense internal pressure. Military hardliners want escalation. Oligarchs want stability. The Russian public wants results. And nationalist voices want victory at any cost. Putin is balancing these demands while facing mounting battlefield losses. And when leaders in that position make sudden moves, they're not doing it from strength. They're doing it from pressure. They're doing it from vulnerability. The Pentagon's assessment, now shared with NATO allies, was designed to signal that Washington is not willing to allow Russian naval dominance to threaten regional stability. Officials said plainly that Russia's fleet consolidation was inconsistent with de-escalation commitments. That is diplomatic language for, we see what you're doing, and we're prepared to respond. You don't usually hear that tone from Washington unless something serious is at stake. Meanwhile, Ukraine's President Zelensky addressed his nation in a defiant, measured speech tonight. He said, "We will not wait for threats to become attacks." He said, "The Black Sea belongs to those who defend freedom." And he said, "Every ship Putin sends, we will answer." These are not rhetorical flourishes. These are statements from a nation that understands just how high the stakes have become. As the night goes on, we expect more details to emerge about what exactly Russia hoped to achieve. But what we do know is that Ukraine's response was timely. It neutralized an emerging threat. It demonstrated continued capability. And it sent an unmistakable message to Moscow. What happens next will depend on what Putin does in the next 72 hours. If he retreats, this moment will be remembered as a turning point. If he escalates, Ukraine and its allies have already shown they are ready. They have shown they are ready to respond. And tonight, for the first time in months, the Kremlin appears to be recalculating. Moscow is quiet, too quiet, and when Putin is quiet, it means he is planning. It means he is choosing his next move carefully. Because tonight Russia learned something they have learned many times before. Ukraine will not break. The West will not abandon them. And the Black Sea will not be surrendered. This story is far from over. But tonight, one thing is clear. Putin's $4.7 billion fleet is devastated. Ukraine's resolve is unshaken. And the world is watching. And we will be here watching every detail as the next phase unfolds.